A question for you, high school dropout. Why do you think your salary is only $4.44? It means we're done with a burden like you. Get out. In other words, you're fired. Payday arrived. When I pointed out that only $4.44 had been deposited into my account, Daniel, the vice president, sneered and abruptly fired me. What? Fired? What does that even mean? Our company is all about performance-based evaluation. Did you think you could just slack off and still get paid? We can't afford to keep a useless worker like you. Now, get out and erase every trace of you from this place. You good for nothing. Daniel slammed his hand on the desk and turned his back to me. Isn't this just absurd? My fists trembled with anger. But fine. I've done all I could. All right, I'll erase every trace of myself. No matter what fate awaits, I don't care. And later, Daniel would come crawling back to me in tears. My name is Michael. I just turned 40 last month. Looking back, the environment I grew up in was pretty harsh. My parents passed away when I was young, and my brother Nathan and I were taken in by relatives. But no one welcomed us with open arms, and we were always forced into a cramped, uncomfortable life. At school, I was constantly called poor and bullied every day. Nathan, from the time he was born, was frail and often absent from school. Being poor was bad enough, but with Nathan rarely attending school, he stood out even more in his class. Driven by a desire to protect Nathan, I worked hard in both academics and sports, striving to be the best at everything. In elementary school, I served as class president and practiced hard every morning to become the anchor in the relay race at the sports day. The bullies who targeted Nathan started to back off, knowing he was Michael's brother. Just as people's attitudes around us began to change, I entered junior high school. The difficulty of both studies and extracurricular activities increased, but I struggled hard not to be left behind. By the time I reached my third year, my classmates started treating me without hesitation, and when I ran for student council president, everyone supported me wholeheartedly. I remember feeling incredibly happy to finally be accepted by everyone. I was a top student, so I continued on to the local high school. I wanted to attend a private school to learn what truly interested me, but my foster father wouldn't allow it. Still, I was blessed with friends who understood me, and it seemed like my youth was just beginning. Then Nathan collapsed and had to be hospitalized. The hospital bills were much higher than I had imagined. Our relatives refused to offer any help, essentially saying we were not their responsibility. And even my foster parents grimaced as they threw minimal treatment fees our way. Nathan's condition fluctuated, and the thought of how long this uncertain hospitalization would continue filled me with a deep sense of dread. In the end, I was forced to drop out of high school. Just working a part-time job wasn't nearly enough to cover Nathan's hospital bills. The bright, promising youth I had briefly held onto slipped away from my grasp. "I'm sorry," Nathan whispered. I was putting away some clothes I had brought from home. "What are you apologizing for?" I tried to hide my exhaustion and smiled at Nathan. But Nathan seemed pained by the situation where I had to drop out of school and work for his sake. But Nathan was my only family. Working hard for my family is only natural for an older brother. You're like a superhuman who excels in both studies and sports, but because of me, this weak, expensive burden, you had to give up so much. I'm not even worth living like this. Stop it. I accidentally shouted. Sorry. No, it's not your fault. In fact, it's because of you that I've been able to push myself so hard. So, hey, here. This is for you. I pulled something out of a paper bag and handed it to Nathan. His face instantly lit up. Wow, this is the game I've been wanting, but wasn't it expensive? Don't underestimate the power of my labor. Anyway, cheer up with this. Yeah, thanks, Michael. Watching Nathan happily inspect the game console, I told myself this was enough. Currently, I work as a contracted employee at a cleaning company, and today, I'm heading to a major IT company's office with my senior colleague. As I sorted through the unsorted trash bins, I keenly observed the office environment. Everyone was hunched over their computers, typing furiously, looking deeply engrossed in their work. This place has a gloomy vibe, doesn't it? My senior colleague muttered as we worked together. I cautiously asked, "Have you done cleaning in these kinds of companies a lot?" "Yeah. There's been a lot more of these computer companies popping up lately," he replied, grimacing at the smell drifting around. Suddenly, I noticed a thick booklet in the burnable trash. It had the word programming written on it. Do you know what programming is? No idea, but that's recyclable, so pull it out of the burnable trash, he instructed. Got it. I continued to work as directed, but the word programming stuck in my mind. After finishing another grueling day at work, I rushed to the bookstore near the station. I quickly searched for the book I was looking for. There it is. If companies like these are on the rise, as my senior mentioned, then it must be a job in demand. I found myself increasingly interested in programming. Maybe this could be a real strength for me. Flipping through the pages filled with complex terms, I began to feel the same hope and excitement that I had felt back in my school days. And so, I started studying programming fervently in the gaps between work. Fighting off drowsiness every time new, complicated technical jargon appeared, I continued my studies, sacrificing sleep. I kept up this rigorous routine for 2 years. Finally, I successfully passed the Fundamental Information Technology Engineer examination, a crucial certification for working as a software engineer. Having achieved this, with only 1 in 5 passing the test, I continued my studies and obtained several other system-related certifications essential for any software engineer. Taking my first steps as a software engineer, I built a track record by working at several system development companies and game production firms. While working for a major telecom company, I managed the operations of a government-affiliated website and, on another occasion, was entrusted as an employee of a subcontractor to build the system for a famous app game. These experiences gave me great confidence as a software engineer. I enjoyed a busy but fulfilling life, blessed with a kind boss and supportive colleagues. Still, with a certain goal in my heart, I left the company with a heavy heart. Now, I work at a game development company. This company, established only a few years ago, released its first game, which became a global hit and was even adopted as an official game in popular esports tournaments. Since then, the company has continued to release RPGs, shooters, and other game titles, rapidly rising to rival major game studios. The company is divided into a management department, which handles general affairs and internal infrastructure, and a systems department, the core of game development. I belong to the game programming team in the systems department. It truly is the heart of a game production company. Currently, the company is managed primarily by Daniel, the vice president. Daniel is a sharp-minded person, but he has a tendency to be self-righteous and is a firm believer in academic credentials. Daniel had previously been part of a startup where he was one of the founding members, and he seemed to pride himself on being more competent in management than anyone else. However, he was a complete novice in the gaming industry, imposing one pointless demand after another without any real understanding. Hey, how's the game scheduled for release in 2 months coming along? Well, we should have a sample ready by early next week. Have it ready by tomorrow. What? But, listen, when I say tomorrow, I mean tomorrow. Yes. In this industry, where deadlines are everything, overtime is just part of the job. That's why effective schedule management is essential, but when unexpected tasks like this come up, you have to redo the whole plan. As a result, a constant air of exhaustion hung over the office. I was tired of this atmosphere, so I made it a point to efficiently finish my work while supporting my colleagues and often left the office on time. Today was no different. I had just completed all my tasks and was about to head home. Hey, Michael. Aurora, who had recently joined the company, called out to me. What's up? She was responsible for managing the internal systems in the management department, and despite the constant overtime, she always seemed to carry a bright and vibrant aura. Her eyes, outlined in a soft brown, looked straight into mine. Michael, who are you really? Huh? What a sudden question. I mean, everyone here is swamped with work, but you always manage to finish everything and leave on time. Honestly, it's hard to believe. Was she being sarcastic? I couldn't quite grasp her true intentions. But in the next moment, Aurora gave me a big smile that seemed to hide a plan and said, Since you're so good at your job, I have something I'd really like your help with. Good morning. Morning. Although my team was still overwhelmed with work, the previously stressful atmosphere had significantly eased. And there were moments when we could even enjoy a little chat. About a month ago, Aurora took the lead in developing and implementing an efficient work management system. Having long questioned the unique working style of this industry, she approached the management, arguing that if things continued this way, it wouldn't be surprising if some employees lost their lives due to overwork. Since the system was launched, the amount of overtime had visibly decreased. Naturally, Daniel was pleased with this achievement. Well, thanks to this system, we've saved the employees from a crisis. It's all thanks to you, Aurora. We should celebrate sometime. Thank you. But really, it's because everyone on the team cooperated. No, these guys did nothing. Like that guy over there, Michael, trying to leave, right? With that, Daniel called out my name just as I was about to leave. I instinctively turned around. People like you who just slack off and leave right on time irritate me, you know? Everyone else is working so hard. And you act like you're above it all. No teamwork. I bet you're just pretending to be capable and shoving all your work onto others, aren't you? He sneered, but there was no laughter in his eyes, sending a chill down my spine. Daniel, Michael is. Aurora, did you know? He's just a high school dropout. A dropout is trash in this society. Hanging out with someone like him could damage your bright career. You should choose who you associate with carefully. For example, someone like me who graduated from a top college and does a top-tier job. Say whatever you want. I didn't bother to engage with Daniel. But his hostility towards me grew stronger by the day. For example, when the company's holiday schedule changed, I was the only one not informed, as if dropouts should work even on days off. Or, the year-end tax adjustment forms somehow never made it to me, and it was obvious these were orders from Daniel. The other employees seemed to realize this was Daniel's doing, but since he was effectively the top authority in the company, no one dared to speak up. They could only watch from the sidelines. I couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions but continued to focus solely on my work. As long as the work got done, I didn't care. However, an unexpected incident occurred around that time. Today, on payday, I stopped by an ATM before heading to the office to withdraw some money. I quickly checked my bank book, and what? For a moment, I was stunned by what I saw. I rubbed my eyes and looked again at the bank book. What does this mean? The amount deposited was only $4.44. Could it be some kind of system error? I rushed out of the ATM and hurried to the company. Daniel, what is the meaning of this? As soon as I arrived at the office, I was told by HR to head to the vice president's room, and without a moment to catch my breath, I dashed over. Daniel, with an oddly calm tone, said something outrageous. What's there to explain? This is our evaluation of you. Compensation is paid according to the value of your work. For someone who lacks teamwork, barely works, and contributes nothing to the company, it's fair. In fact, you should be grateful you're getting anything at all, you salary thief. The sheer audacity of his words made my body flush with heat. But Daniel didn't stop there, he kept pressing on. All right, here's a question for you, Mr. High School Dropout. Why do you think it's $4.44? Daniel waved his right hand dismissively, as if shooing away a pest, and said, that means shoo to get rid of a burden like you. In other words, you're fired. You think you can just exist and get paid here? My eyes aren't blind. We don't have money to waste on the useless. Now, erase every trace of yourself and get out. With this undeniable declaration of my dismissal, I left the vice president's office. Devastated but resolved to execute a certain plan I had been secretly considering. After hearing the same words of caution from my teammates so many times that they practically echoed in my ears, I began clearing out my desk alone when Aurora called out, Michael. Oh, Aurora. Thanks for your hard work. Aurora had a stern expression on her face. Why? What? I looked at her closely. Her eyes seemed angry, but also sad. But instead of answering her question, I paused for a moment before saying, Aurora, I'm sorry, but there's something I need to ask you to do again. Phew. I glanced at the clock, it read 10 a.m. It had been a long time since I'd slept so soundly. For the past few months, thanks to Daniel's harassment, I hadn't been able to return home at a reasonable hour. And it felt wonderful to experience a normal, human life again. Just as I was thinking about getting a haircut for the first time in a while, my phone on the bedside table buzzed loudly. I glanced at the screen and tapped the call button. Hello? Hey. Michael. Daniel's voice was high-pitched with anger. You really did it this time. What are you talking about? Don't play dumb. Anyway, get back here now. The company's in big trouble. What happened? Apparently, that work management system Aurora created was actually made by you. She told me everything. Just get back here. Daniel sounded both angry and desperate. But I scratched my head and replied, Yes, that's right. I'm the one who created that system. I asked her to say she made it. Michael. Why would you do something like that? And why did you destroy the system? Daniel was getting even more furious. Oh. Didn't you say it yourself, Daniel? That when I leave, I should clean up every trace of myself? So I did exactly as you said and erased everything I created. I heard Daniel gasp on the other end of the line. Well, I did say that, but this is sabotage. I'm ordering you as vice president to come back right now. I'm sorry, but I won't be coming back. With that, I hung up the phone, finding the whole situation absurdly ridiculous. I lay back down in bed, recalling the conversation I had with Aurora. Going back 3 months. It was right after work when Aurora stopped me, saying there was something she wanted my help with. What do you want me to help with? I want you to team up with me to create a certain system. A system? Yes. Then Aurora began passionately explaining all the problems with the current work environment and the company's situation. All I could do was nod along. And so, Aurora's eyes grew even more determined. We're working on developing a new work management system in my department. If we implement this system, it should drastically change how we work. Saying this, Aurora pulled some documents out of a clear folder she was holding in her left hand. This is an outline of the system. As I flipped through the papers she handed me, I thought for a moment. All right, I'll help you. But I have one condition. If you agree to it, I'll build almost the entire system myself. What? All of it? Isn't that a bit much? Well, of course, there'll be parts where I'll need your help, Aurora. Aurora's eyes widened in surprise. Then I told her my condition. I didn't want my name to appear anywhere in the system's development, revealing my hidden feelings along with it. I closed my eyes and remembered the months of working together with Aurora. Countless tests, finding bugs, fixing them. We painstakingly repeated these steps, gradually shaping the system. Honestly, building this system was incredibly challenging, but I never gave up, not just because I loved working as a software engineer, but more so because I was inspired by Aurora's passion. Also, because I wanted to improve the company. I picked up my phone again and called someone. Hello? A voice I had been waiting to hear came through the line. Sorry to bother you at such a tough time. It's fine, but more importantly, I'm truly sorry for the trouble I caused you, Aurora. She fell silent for a moment. You deserve more recognition. I still can't accept it. Why did you have to leave the company? I don't care about the company anymore. Besides, you should tell the president, Mr. Carter, everything. Stop hiding in the shadows. You deserve to be recognized. Aurora's words made me fall silent. The next day, while I was getting ready in the bathroom, my phone vibrated. It was Daniel again. Reluctantly, I answered the call, and his tone had completely changed from the day before. He was practically crying. Please, I'm begging you. Help us. Since yesterday, I've been checking things with the staff, but we can't seem to restore the system. And today, Mr. Carter returned, and he's furious about the situation. Please, just come in for a bit. His voice sounded so desperate that it sent chills down my spine, but I agreed to go to the office. When I stepped into the office for the first time in a while, it was in total chaos. The phones were ringing nonstop, and several employees were intensely talking on their own phones. As soon as Daniel saw me, he rushed over. Behind him, Aurora and Mr. Carter watched with cold eyes. Michael, thank you so much, you're a lifesaver. Daniel tried to cling to me as he said this, but I skillfully avoided him and walked over to Aurora and Mr. Carter. Mr. Carter, I sincerely apologize for the chaos I've caused. It's entirely my fault. I've heard everything from Aurora here, but I want to hear from you directly what exactly happened. Mr. Carter looked at me without any words of reproach. After taking a deep breath, I began to recount all the harassment and mistreatment I had endured from Daniel. Daniel quickly retorted, What? That doesn't change the fact that you destroyed the system. Stop trying to shift the blame. I was driven to destroy the system because I couldn't endure Daniel's harassment any longer. However, I viewed it as an act of retaliation for the mistreatment, and considering the damage it might cause the company, I've given Aurora the data needed to restore the system. With that, I looked at Aurora. She looked down. What happened to the recovery data? But instead of answering my question, she said, when I heard from you that your salary was only $4.44, I couldn't believe it. Then, turning to Daniel, Aurora declared, Michael is an extremely talented software engineer. He deserves much more recognition. Instead, you pushed him to the point of harassment and even tried to force him out. I wanted you, Daniel, to truly understand just how terrible your actions have been. But Aurora took a deep breath to steady herself. I take full responsibility for neglecting the recovery process, which ultimately caused this chaos within the company. I did it of my own will, even though Michael left behind the necessary recovery data. I am truly sorry. If there is to be any punishment, it should be directed at me, not Michael. She straightened her posture and bowed deeply. As Daniel began to speak, Daniel, Mr. Carter finally broke his silence. Daniel turned to him, startled. This entire fiasco is your responsibility, Mr. Carter said, his voice calm but laced with anger. What? Daniel opened his mouth to protest, but Mr. Carter ignored him and turned to Aurora. I want you to investigate. Speak to the other employees and find out if he has done anything else inappropriate. Based on your findings, I will decide on an appropriate course of action. Mr. Carter. Daniel, realizing he could no longer talk his way out of this, collapsed in defeat. Mr. Carter then turned to me and said, Michael, I'd like to speak with you alone. Entering the president's office for the first time, I saw it was filled with game titles the company had produced over the years. I bowed deeply. Mr. Carter, I apologize for causing such a disturbance. It was all my idea. Aurora had nothing to do with it. I am prepared to accept any consequences. Why do you always do this? Mr. Carter's tone was no longer calm. He shouted in frustration. I raised my head. There, with a pained expression, was Nathan, my younger brother. Yes. This is the game development company where my brother Nathan serves as president. You've always been like this, Michael. Sacrificing yourself, trying to keep everyone else out of trouble. Do you know how many times I've felt hurt as your brother seeing you like that? Hearing Nathan's true feelings for the first time, I could only look down in silence. The reason I was able to keep going was because of Nathan. But seeing me like this only made Nathan despise himself for feeling powerless and inadequate. I'm nothing like you, Michael. I'm just a failure. Even after he was discharged from the hospital, Nathan was always filled with frustration toward me, and he began avoiding me more and more. I'm trying my best for Nathan, but in the end, I'm only causing him more pain. At that time, with Nathan's health relatively stable, he decided to start a game development company with some like-minded game enthusiasts he met online. With his exceptional creativity, Nathan quickly produced one hit game after another. The company rapidly grew into a major enterprise, but with that came increased pressure on him as president. Eventually, the stress took its toll, and Nathan's health declined again, leading to another hospitalization. Nathan had shared some details about the company's situation with me, and around the time of his hospitalization, The company's performance began to decline gradually. I wanted to help, no matter what. But I knew Nathan would never want me to intervene directly. So I secretly decided to join the company. However, I knew that if I were to be too active, it would only cause Nathan more distress. So I decided to work in the shadows, focusing solely on improving the company's performance. Did you really think that would make me happy, Michael? What? Nathan's eyes, filled with a mix of anger and sadness, pierced deeply into mine. To you, I'm still just your sickly little brother, aren't I? Nathan. But I'm not the same as I was before. When I first found out you had come to work at my company, I felt so frustrated. Nathan continued, clenching his fists tightly. Even after becoming an adult and the president of a company like this, I thought you still only saw me as your weak little brother. His eyes were wet with tears. I'm not as weak as you think I am anymore. You saw that today, didn't you? So, Nathan walked closer to me. We're real family, so you don't have to act like a superhero in secret. Instead, he took my hand and squeezed it tightly. Will you help support the company with me from now on? Nathan. My eyes filled with tears, and I could no longer look him in the face. A month has passed since the system debacle. Daniel was dismissed from the company for cause. He had been someone Nathan met when he first started the company. With his background in consulting, he taught Nathan everything about management, gaining his trust. But that was just his public face. Aurora's investigation revealed that Daniel had secretly tried to take over the company, altering the rights in his favor, and conspiring with partners to intentionally damage the company's performance, all to push Nathan out of his position as president. Now ousted from the company, Daniel reportedly attempted to become a freelance management consultant, using his accumulated knowledge and experience. However, due to his arrogant attitude and questionable character, he struggled to find any work. Currently, he's making ends meet with part-time jobs, and the other day, I happened to see him directing traffic on the street. Who would have thought? Daniel, of all people. And as for me, invited back by Nathan, I returned to the company and took on the dual role of software engineer and board member, assisting Nathan. It seemed that everyone in the company had already sensed that we were brothers, but being able to acknowledge it openly, I felt deeply grateful to Nathan. Through this recent ordeal, Aurora and I came to understand each other's feelings, and we officially started dating. Reflecting on the current situation, which I could never have imagined when I first joined the company, I vowed never to hurt those who are important to me again. Looking back, I realize I've been carrying a lot of burdens on my own. I've learned firsthand that sacrificing myself for my family can end up causing them pain and even hurt those I hold dear. Through this recent turmoil, I've come to recognize just how important my family and loved ones are to me. In the future, whenever we face obstacles or challenges, I hope to create things that bring joy to many people, hand in hand with the people who matter most to me.